Energy costs are once again in the spotlight as the NERSA hearings got underway in Cape Town recently and will roll into Johannesburg next week. There have been quite a few interesting developments in the space, and as always, our regular energy commentator, Ted Blom, is here to help us make sense of it all. Ted, great to chat to you again.
Good evening.
And I believe you've got an official title now. You've been appointed as Outer's energy spokesperson and consultant on a part-time basis, so congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
What is Outer doing in the energy space? I mean, we know it's broadening its reach to become a civil actor in areas outside of tolls. What's its energy philosophy?
Basically, Outer's on a journey now to expand its influence base, and it looks at what are the most pressing issues in the South African economy, and energy came up as the most critical issue.
Now, with regards to where we are at the moment, I know you're addressing African Utility Week in May on cost-reflective tariffs, which have become the buzzword used by Eskom lately. Is there such a thing, in your view, as cost-reflective tariffs?
Michael, no. I think it's a definition that Eskom's concocted just to try and bamboozle the public into making us believe that they are entitled to recover whatever costs they incur, and their costs have been exorbitant over the last 10 years.
What seems to be missing when we speak of cost-reflective tariffs, Ted, is efficiencies and the fact that one needs to run an efficient utility. Do you think that's been lost somewhat in the debate?
Absolutely, it's been lost, and it's a critical part of the definition which prescribes as to whether Eskom's entitled to an increase or not. And that is certainly the mission that we've taken upon ourselves during this part of the hearings, is to just point out to NERSA and to all the authorities that perhaps they've overlooked the efficiency part of the definition, and that it's time to reopen some of these ridiculous cost increases. Now, it's over 700% over the last 10 years. We need to reopen some of those and have a look and see whether the rules have been properly applied or not.
And you've testified at NERSA hearings since 2009. What's your experience been during these hearings? Do they work? Are people being heard at them?
Michael, it's with regret that I need to admit that as much as I thought at the time that I was doing a good job and I was doing it in the public interest, the fact of the matter is that if you go back and look at the rules of decision, is that I've actually been totally ineffective.
Why do you say that?
Primarily because NERSA hears all the clamour, and some of it's justified and some of it's perhaps not that justified. They then go into a dark room and weigh up allegedly the various options and allegations and suggestions, and they've come out abracadabra with a new resolution or decision without any justification or route to explanation. Or there's actually no logical justification in the outcome. And that's where we believe there's a big problem.
Would you like to see far more transparency in the way NERSA deliberates and arrives at its conclusions then?
Absolutely. And that is the duty of a regulator, is to be totally transparent in its deliberations. And it's a bit more so for NERSA because the average man in the street hasn't got a clue as to what's going on.
When one looks at NERSA's track record, there were questions around the way it handled the BHP sweetheart deal with Eskom. Do you think that perhaps still clouds the perception of NERSA?
Absolutely. It's been more than 2 years and there's been no resolution of that fact. Eskom handed the hot potato over to NERSA and said, you sort it out. I've offered my services to NERSA. They've declined my services because I was intimately involved with that transaction in 1994. And it's just been left in abeyance. And that transaction itself is costing the public over 15 billion rand a year. 15
billion rand a year. Now, that would quite easily absorb the latest tariff increase, would it not, Ted?
Well, the latest increase is 22 billion. And Michael, just to point out how flawed this whole exercise is a part of that claim is for lost sales or sales that haven't been realized because of a declining economy. I don't know what your feel is for the next year or two, but this rate decision ends in 2018, and most people I speak to expect a slower economy over the next 2 years, And if you then just take the current situation and extrapolate it forward, by 2018, the shortfall and the amount that the public is going to be asked to make good exceeds 80 billion, and that will justify, if we follow the current procedure, an increase of more than 32% on top of the 8% a year that Eskom has already been given.
No, well, I think anyone in business would have to agree with you, Ted, that this economy can't afford to absorb those sorts of cost increases at this time. Now, what will your message be at the Johannesburg hearing next week? Is this the position you're going to be taking?
I think the position that Arthur and I have agreed that we need to highlight at this stage is that we need to go back to our core roots, and that is the definition of what constitutes an efficient energy operator. And to the extent that that hurdle is not met, we need to be honest with the public, we need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to do some introspection and go back and sort out the problem.
And when one looks at the actual role of NERSA per se, I mean, I've heard murmurings that it might be taken to court. What's your position on that?
I think Arthur has proven in its track record that when they are not heard and they are not given a fair hearing, they will take the necessary action to be heard.
Well, I think you can read into that exactly what the position will be. Ted Blom, newly appointed Outer Energy spokesperson, talking about Outer's mission to bring its civic duty to bear on the NERSA process and the ongoing energy crisis here on Classic Business.